Not saying I'm their father, but if I have to be, call me daddy. Let's get back to something positive. Let's get back to what IYANLA really meant to say. You know what I mean? But we're gonna start doing a deep breakdown of what was actually meant by IYANLA's "Would you date a bus driver?" question. And that's the thing. I think if this is meant to be a healthy discussion, if we're supposed to be bringing some type of clarity to this and leadership as men, which they claim we never do, we got to at least bring this to the older women so they can have the conversation with them. Because you're right. I don't think it's our place to necessarily always weigh in. But what does a father do? When the mother calls and she can't handle it anymore, a father comes in to handle the situation. That's how it's traditionally done. But, all right. Not saying I'm their father, but if I have to be, call me daddy.
We talk about on the R Spot how to heal, grow, and transform our relationships to make them more loving, more fulfilling, and more productive. The other reason we are doing this special edition is because recently I sparked an international conversation by asking Ebony K. Williams what I thought was a very simple question. And that question set off a firestorms of conversations and debate that has had many twists and turns, so many that I think people forgot the reason for the question and the context of my conversation with Ebony. So shout out to my soror Ebony and to all my AKA sisters. But I want to start right here. To all of the bus drivers, the UPS drivers, the FedEx drivers, to the sanitation workers and the EMS technicians and the postal workers, to the truck drivers who bring the milk that my great-grandson drinks and the bread that I love to the supermarkets, to the plumbers and the electricians, and yes, to even some of the Uber drivers. I would date you. I want you to be real clear. I would date you.
You know what's funny? IYANLA actually has a video on her Instagram of her in Atlanta on the bus with the supervisor of the bus. I guess he's a manager in the buses. She was like, "Hey, ladies, you wouldn't date this man? Literally, you wouldn't date this man." These women have lost their minds. Because here's the thing. They'll say one thing and do another. The rhetoric is one thing. But when they see the real thing in their face, this guy's making probably over 6 figures. You know what I mean? Mid 6 figures probably. In Atlanta. You tell me he ain't getting his pick of the litter? He's the man in the hood.
And I thank you for being the heartbeat of this country. I really do. And yes, I'm a lawyer. And yes, I have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a law degree, and an Emmy. I've been on the New York Times bestsellers list several times for some of the 19 titles that I've authored. And to you, beloved blue-collar, hard-working men out there, I would date you in a hot Mississippi minute. If, and here are my conditions, okay? If you're good to your mother.
Okay.
And if you are in good relationship with the God of your understanding. And if you take care of or have taken care of all of the children you sired.
Very important distinction.
Treat me well.
Very important distinction. She wasn't talking about no deadbeats. So all these dusties and bandits that we're supposed to be, she wasn't even talking about them in that original statement. So where did this whole framing come from now? That we're somehow being coddled as black men because there was resistance to the framing that IYANLA put together.
If you treat me well.
And later in the conversation, Dr. Steve Perry is also part of this, and he had some really good perspective on it as well.
Yeah, I would date you because I believe those are good ingredients.
Good ingredients for a character. We haven't even gotten to the man's character for real. These women have written him off at, what did I say? When you're walking down the street and you encounter a black woman and she gives you an evil eye. So imagine, like, she's written you off at that point. She didn't think about your character. And it claims there's no good men.
Have good ingredients, you can make a great meal. Together, grow together, build together, evolve together, create together with good ingredients. And those things that I mentioned, I believe all of those are good ingredients. So let me be real clear about why I focused or why I presented the bus driver. Because in my mind, a bus driver is an individual who is focused, an individual who has self-discipline and self-control. A bus driver will eat his food out of a paper bag while he drives, and he doesn't stop to pee unless his passengers need to pee. Okay? To me, that spells compassion.
Now, who even did that math? Who of the women that are commenting, including Ebony K. Williams, even considered that she picked the bus driver for a symbolic reason? Because he is a focused man. You know? It's crazy.
A bus driver has...
This is why I said they're not deep enough. They're not deep enough and they're not healed enough to hear what people are trying to say to them.
Vision. And he pays attention to detail. He has to know what's going on in the bus, in front of the bus, and behind the bus in order to get his passengers where they're going, to get them there safely. So that tells me I can trust a bus driver with my life.
He cares about people. How about that? Something else a little different than what the narrative is about settling for a dusty bandit bus driver. This is someone who cares about people for the most part. He's in charge of their life while they're on his bus. If he swerves off the road and survives, he's going to be liable for all of those passengers aboard his vessel, his bus. This is a conversation that I said is deeper than just, would you date a dusty bus driver? And you missed the point entirely.
And in my mind, these are all good ingredients. So yeah, I would date you. And that's why we're here today, because I want to continue and expand the conversation of love with conditions. Why we use or should we use status, income, and position as the criteria for dating and mating. How do we do that? Why do we do that? And most important of all, is it working? Now hear me. Everyone is entitled to their preferences and their standards. And what happened was, when I asked Ebony that question, she said, only if he owned the bus. Well, see, if you're going to have a standard, let him own the bus company. Because if that one bus breaks down, y'all are done. Just like if the lawyer or the doctor or the dentist loses his job, breaks his arm, can't practice anymore. So if everybody...
And I mentioned that in one of my videos too. I was like, it doesn't seem like a good idea to own just one bus. He needs to own a fleet of buses, if that's the case. If you're trying to elevate him in that discussion. But y'all ain't hearing. You listening, but you ain't hearing.
Is entitled to or has their standards and their preference, but are they working? And are the standards now obsolete?
Are they working?
Based on the conditions and the realities that we face in the world? Are the demands that you're holding for someone else to live up to, are they working?
No, they are not. They're not. You're passing over the man that is meant to take you, that is meant to fulfill your legacy for very superficial reasons. This is what IYANLA was trying to say. But you heard what you wanted to hear.
To get you what you say you want. So that's the question that we're going to nibble on together, because people have taken this question and turned it into something else out of the context of our original conversation, which didn't even have anything to do with dating. So for those of you who
didn't have to do with dating, it didn't have to do with dating. This is what I told you. I heard this in the original statement. Ebony didn't even hear this. All the women that I played that were commenting on this didn't hear this. But it's something about a woman that has been through some things, as IYANLA will admit, that has some wisdom, that can have perspective on this situation. This is what I'm saying. We're dealing with some women that are unhealed. They're not well. They're not. Is serious. And I want to get IYANLA on the record for what she really said, because I don't think this video has enough views as it is. And it leaves out a really important context point that's missed. Right?
In our time together, I want to continue the conversation that I began when I was a guest on the Griot with Ebony Williams. And believe it or not, we were not talking about dating, but that show went viral. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. Then, listen, in the second hour, I'm going to open the phone lines and ask you the same question.
Oh, I wish I could play her calls too.
Would you date a bus driver or a cab driver or grave digger? And why is somebody in a blue collar job considered less than? And people are talking about, I want Black women to lower their standards. I wasn't even talking about dating.
She wasn't even talking about Black women.
So can you hear and do you listen? Because that's a very important quality in a relationship.
Ooh. Did she say that y'all might not be prepared to be in a relationship for real? Because you don't know how to listen? Because I know any man that is in a relationship with you is going to want you to listen to him, to really hear him.
Whether you're dating a bus driver or a CEO, I want to know if the way of the world today is about transactional relationships,
right?
What you can give and get, what you can do for me, what I can get from you. Is that where we are? Is the way of relationships in the world today about loving with conditions?
Right. And if your relationship is purely based on money, if it's purely transactional, is that not a shallow relationship? Is that not a shallow existence? This is what we're dealing with here. And if it's not addressed, if we don't have our elders in our community, our wiser elders, to bring this to the forefront where they can be, where these women can hear exactly what's happening, exactly what's being said, then we don't have anything.
Or are we willing to accept a good person with good ingredients and do the work to create a great meal? So in the second hour, I want to talk to you. If you have a question or a comment or a perspective, say women are educated, programmed, and conditioned in today's world because of our experiences and our familial and intimate relationships. Our feminine energy has been distorted, denied, diminished, and dishonored by us as women and the world at large.
Mm-mm. How many people are going to say this? They won't really listen to it coming from a man for the most part. But we need more women like this who can identify the core issue and speak to it.
That was the conversation, okay, that somehow has gotten lost. And as an alpha woman, I recognize that I am an alpha.
And she even spoke that she was imperfect. She said that she was an alpha in her past, that she was these women that are going through these issues right now, that are not getting the outcomes and results that they desire. Let me go back. I want her to say that one more time, what she said before the alpha woman part.
Heart energy on the planet. And that energy is purposeful. The energy of forgiving grace, of compassion, mercy, caring, nurturing, nourishing the earth and people on the earth. And that's a tender energy, a nurturing energy that somehow gets lost in the transactions of taking and getting in relationships. However, I also acknowledge, because of the way women are educated, programmed, and conditioned in today's world, because of our experiences and our familial and intimate relationships, our feminine energy has been distorted, denied, diminished, and dishonored by us as women and the world at large. That was the conversation.
That was the conversation. You can't do anything with it. If they want to have another conversation and miss this point entirely, then you might really have to question if it's worth having the conversation, because they're not thinking on a level where we can come to a solution. They missed the point entirely. Ebony missed the point entirely. She picked the straw man argument and argued against it. Something the conversation that IYANLA was bringing up had nothing to do with. In her defense on the Breakfast Club, she didn't ever bring this point up. Why? Because she was having a different conversation. She was having an indoctrinated conversation. She was having an unhealed conversation. And it's time that we grow these women up so they can have an adult conversation, a healed conversation. I don't need to be right all the time conversation. Y'all don't hear me.
Okay. That somehow has gotten lost. And as an alpha woman, I recognize that I am an alpha woman. And I understand how and why I shifted more into providing and protecting, driving rather than being driven. I understand why it was difficult for me to nurture from my heart, to teach by tender, gentle demonstration of what it means to be a feminine expression of life. And like so many women, young, old, black, white, I was taught and conditioned to be hard and strong, but not powerful. Okay? I denied my innate power as a woman.
Important distinction. Strong and hard, but not powerful. You got so many women walking around here, and I noticed this in Ebony's face. The stern look she was having. The malfunction she was having when she was asked if she would date a bus driver. I'm gonna give her some grace. I think part of that was the actual delay in the news studio between IYANLA's Zoom but the response came out was the response. She's putting on this armor to seem tough, masculine-esque. Ebony is probably 5'2". She's probably all of 5'2". I think it's so cute when women are 5'2" and they try to be tough. That's not where you're supposed to be. It's ineffective. It's performing masculinity. You ever get that 5'2" woman come up to you? Like, literally. I had a situation in a relationship with a woman who was in corporate America, and she was 5'2". This woman really tried to fight me. I'm 6'2". I just grabbed her by her shoulders and held her there until she was calming down, right? Until she was done. Because it's true. It's like, who are you really trying to fight? And I think that is part of the reason that there is so much conflict. That's part of the reason we get some of the videos that I played earlier. Is because they don't feel like they can really fight. Yeah, CBP in the chat says, I'm 6'3" and these chicks were bucking him, right? They think they can really beat you in some cases too. But that masculinity, if you imagine Ebony K. Williams at 5'2", with so much consternation and all that arguing on the Breakfast Club with DJ Envy, like she gonna do something. It's so cute. It is cute. But it's not. Because we can't encourage that type of behavior. Because it's hard and it's strong, but it's not powerful. Why is it not powerful? Because it's not dealing with the power every woman has. The power of their femininity. It's false. Stop doing it, ladies. You're out here marching around like you're a tough guy, because at your job, you got to be a tough guy. And then you deal with every man on the street as if you some kind of tough dude. Anyway, you ain't tough. just be a girl. Please. Nobody's asking for anything more. It's not misogynistic. It's just true.
Understand why it was difficult for me to nurture from my heart, to teach by tender, gentle demonstration of what it means to be a feminine expression of life. And like so many women, young, old, black, white, I was taught
Here it goes.
and conditioned to be hard and strong, but not powerful. Okay? I denied my innate power as a woman and sought power based on a masculine construct, which is about doing rather than being.
Okay. Resting in the femininity that we always hear. I think some of these women that are running off at the mouth should actually listen to what IYANLA is saying to them. This is a conversation, like I said, men can't have. But as I brought it up, in the nuclear family, in the well-functioning family, the only time the man gets involved is when mama can't get through to the children, right? When it's operating right. When it elevates to a certain level, then Papa don't take no mess. Shout out to James Brown. Papa don't take no mess.
Masculine construct, which is about speaking rather than listening. Aggression rather than surrender and receptivity. I was taught to be intelligent, not to be intuitive. My intuition didn't make logical sense, so I denied it. I was taught to be independent rather than interdependent, rigid rather than flexible, competitive rather than cooperative.
She's spitting bars. She's spitting bars. She's explaining exactly what's wrong with our relationships in this modern dating and mating era. Oh, wrong screen. She's getting to the core of it. And these women have run off with a narrative, including Ebony, because of indoctrination and what they've been taught. They've run off with a narrative that she didn't even mean in that simple statement. Would you date a bus driver? This is a conversation about character. For crying out loud. Doesn't have to do with no black men being bandits, because she wasn't even talking about black men initially. This is crazy talk. And you look at IYANLA and you see black woman, so you automatically put your trauma on what she said. When I told you, IYANLA in this interview admits she is Native American, she is Latino, and she is also black. She could be talking about any of those. But you see black woman, and this is an issue too. Just like they judge the black men that they encounter regularly, they'll judge a black woman in the same way. Oh, trust and believe. There's no loyalty amongst thieves.
I was taught that. I was taught to be tough, not tender, because tender is weak. As a woman, as a young girl, I was taught to get and take rather than give and serve. And when I did serve, it was from a place of better than and less than, rather than in recognition of equality, humanity, and equanimity.
Service. How often have we seen this lack of awareness? It goes back to the, would you fix a plate for your man conversation. The service, the servitude, the submission. You know, people have such a negative connotation on all these words, but words have meanings. And just because you interpret them through your pain and your untreated traumas, it doesn't mean that everybody else means that. But IYANLA's trying to give you some real game here on being a woman.
Along the way of that toughness, hardness, roughness, meanness, along the way with compounded disappointments and betrayals, where I didn't get what I wanted or thought I didn't get what I deserved, I lost faith in life and in myself and in people. And that made me afraid to be vulnerable, because vulnerability means being weak. And I cannot be weak, because that means that I'll get hurt again.
That's all we're dealing with here. We're dealing with women who are afraid to be vulnerable for their fear of being hurt again. Untreated trauma. Unhealed people. And what does that do? They congregate in these online spaces. And they talk about everything outside of themselves. But when do those two ladies that I played earlier ever talk about what's going on inside of themselves? I know plenty of places where I hear brothers opening up exactly what's happening to them and what's happening outside them. I hear brothers talk about self-improvement constantly. You know why? Because we get negative reinforcement if we don't talk about that. The world will deal with you as a man if you are not willing to step up and take your place rightfully as a man. And that doesn't mean being a high-level executive or a lawyer or a doctor. Even as a bus driver, as a trash worker. You're told to really handle your responsibilities, to take care of your children. If not, we're going to take the money out of your bank account before you even get it. Right? These women haven't experienced that. Oh, these are all the coddled black men that exist. And oh, IYANLA is black male identified because she's not talking about them right now, when IYANLA's made a career of dealing with black men's issues as well. Come on. It's ridiculous. Let me play that one more time. This is such a good clip. That's why I was saying I was hurt that I couldn't play it the first time. But we getting on it now, and I'm only going to play this beginning part of it because I'm looking at it now. I'm not going to be able to get to Dr. Steve on this video. There might be a part 3 of this. So, because we got to break this down. This is too much game. There should be a whole study, not a whole study, a whole genre of women that take the message that IYANLA was trying to bring in this statement and teach it to each other and start to really understand what she was trying to say. Now, shout out to my sisters that already get it. I know some of y'all are in the chat here. I know some of y'all understand what is really going on here. But if you're not willing to spread that message with your sisters that just don't get it, then what are we doing? You got women over here talking about how men can improve and not dealing with these untreated, unhealed women that are spreading the sickness. What did Patrice O'Neal say about Yamaneika Saunders? I'm gonna start to say all the names now. Yamaneika, she's on Comedy Hype right now. If you ever watch some videos and you see a woman from Baltimore, shout out to B More, but if you see a woman that is particularly indoctrinated on that show, it's Yamaneika. She had an interaction with Patrice O'Neal because they're both comedians. And she was on the Black Phillip show years and years ago. Patrice O'Neal used to say, "You're sick! You're sick." He's like, there's something that needed to be treated. He said that directly to her. And all these years later, probably 15 years later, she's still sick because it hasn't been taken care of. And I'm telling you, the fact that I'm even talking about it, it shows that we care as men. Because the opposite of hate is indifference. If we didn't give a damn, we wouldn't even bring it up. That's what I always bring up about Kevin Samuels. It's like he didn't have to do any of that. But he did. Anyway. All right.
Disappointed again. Denied or dismissed again. And it was my toughness, my competitiveness, and my emptiness as a woman that showed up in every room I entered.
Woo! And yeah, somebody in the chat was asking for a bomb. She been blowing it up this whole time. It's crazy. It's crazy how on fire IYANLA is in this simple monologue, man. She just lit the camera up and started shooting 3-pointers. And these women are saying IYANLA is somebody they don't need to listen to. Huh.
As a woman, I was miserable, unhappy, and mean as hell. Thank God I'm better now. That was in my 20s and my 30s. Then through many years of self-work and self-awareness, I learned a different construct for living my life as a woman. I reworked and recaptured my rites of passage, my blessings, my lessons, my ceremonies, my gifts. I stopped being angry and I became curious. I stopped knowing everything and became teachable.
Woo.
At 20, I thought I knew the answer to every question, but at 40, I realized I didn't even know what the question was.
That's a good stopping point. I'm telling you, this is so multi-layered and deep, and people don't understand what she was really trying to say. It's a shame. It's a crying shame.